up, y'all? It's Season Love, SENLUV, that's who I be, and welcome to another episode of the Money Healing Monologues. Over here at the Money Healing Monologues, I like to open up a space to speak about the development of Black wealth, health, and excellence. So, join me every single Monday where I like to reiterate, reteach, and dissect some shit that I just think us as a Black community should speak about. And of course, the purpose of this is to open up a conversation. So please feel free to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. If you agree with me, disagree with me, if I ruffled some feathers, whatever the case may be, let me know what's tea. So this week on episode 27 of the Money Healing Monologues, we're going to be talking about judgment plus embarrassment equals shame and guilt. Now, that's pretty self-explanatory, and I feel like I wanted to break it down like that to, I guess, make what I'm trying to explain a little bit more tangible. You know what it is to be judged or to judge someone or something. I'm just gonna look it up just so we could get the facts. So yeah, the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. And I feel like when we hear the considered decisions and come to sensible conclusions, those are always based off of your preconceived notions that you have come to know living your human experience thus far. And then going into embarrassment, you know what it is to be embarrassed. I feel like embarrassment has to do with putting others on the spot or putting certain things on the spot, putting more emphasis on certain things, aspects or traits, insecurities, you feel me? Like putting more emphasis on it in an act to project shame and guilt onto another being. I hope this is making sense so far. Those two things together equals the shame and the guilt that, in my opinion, keeps our community from progressing forward. Just in this whole concept, what we're talking about is the pipeline from society structure to individual. So stick with me. This might be a head buzz, but it's gonna make sense. It's gonna start making dollars, bro. I promise. As you know, and if you don't, I like to go down who, what, where, when, why, and how format, and the how will always be a question. It's gonna be down below if you're listening in on YouTube, and in the question box if you're listening in on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast. Is that it? Yeah, that's wherever you listening to this at, you feel me? Look in the question box, and the how is always going to be the question, you know, that I also answer at the end, and I would love for you to answer down below. So yeah, get straight into it. Starting me off with my who. I asked who started this and who does this affect. I said white men, colonizers started this trait of judgment and I want to say embarrassment, because I feel like all of these, everything that I'm naming here, I feel like came naturally. I feel like I'm not knocking the aspect of it being like a natural trait that human beings experience. However, when we're going back to like how this society was bred, and when I'm talking about society, I'm talking about literally the culture that we live today, the type of lifestyle that we live today, and where that's originated from. And of course, everybody has a different definition of lifestyle. However, the capitalistic lifestyle that we all live, that forces us to, you know, work to live and all of these other inhumane things, that indoctrination has happened like since it started way back in the day. You know what I'm saying? From the first colonizers to ever colonize anything. I don't know, that's how my brain sees it. That's what my brain perceives it as, like where we even got the idea to even run society like this. And of course, it takes a collective amount of people to think a certain way. And I wasn't there back then to even dictate how they even got to this point. The point is, who I see this being, just where this concept even like came from in my head, or just where I feel like it was originated from. It was from the first jealous white man. You know what I'm saying? The first person to judge something, judge another culture, judge a way that somebody else was doing something enough to resent it and take control over it for their own personal selfish benefit. That was seen as okay back then. That was seen as a way to maneuver back then. And yes, it was instinctual, but bro, that's OD. That's really crazy to be colonizing different places for yourself and for the shit that you want to do, disregarding the people that resided there before you even got there. That's some real low vibrational shit, in my opinion. That's some real low vibrational feelings. And yeah, like I keep saying, like, we all feel these feelings, but that was OD. That's all I'm saying. The second part of my who, I asked who's affected. And I said everyone else, since they started whatever we call society today. So what we call society today, it's all, a matter of evolution. And yes, we've had our shifts. Yes, we've had our, maneuvers and the growth that we've had as just like an entire human race, I want to say. We can see our community can definitely testify to the fact that there is still so many fucking problems going on in the society today and so many things that hold us back. Moving me into my what, I asked, what is the pipeline? What does it do? And I said, it's how the society structure has translated through its people. Since the system was built on selfishness, it makes its people innately selfish. Does that make sense? I spoke about in another episode how, the trauma is generational. You know what I'm saying? Things were passed on. Like for like decades on top of decades, centuries after centuries, you know what I'm saying? And we've evolved so much into how we are today. And though we are very modern and advanced in so many different aspects, like we always say, there's duality to everything, because of the foundation of selfishness, greed, and hate that this society was built on, it has allowed the roots of the society to be made out of judgment and run off of people's insecurities and the feelings of embarrassment and shame and guilt. The innate feelings that society was bred off of were very heavy vibrations. Hate is very heavy, and to hate another group of people so much to the point where you enslave them and traumatize them for generation after generation, and still to this day we can still see discrimination in our society. To me, that's just beastie, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Moving me into my where, I asked, where did this begin and where is it taking us? When slavery came about and we started looking at people as property, I feel like that's a really great example and just physical manifestation of how judgment and embarrassment has gotten that community very far in society. And it's given them enough power and control to literally enslave billions on top of billions of people. And I'll say even more billions, passing it down to generation of just being mentally enslaved. Because like we know, our parents only taught us what they know and how they have taught themselves and learned to survive, not understanding that certain things that they're rooted in, that they have been taught since they were young, that they've seen when they were young, are truly genuinely detrimental to their growth and well-being because of the society structure that was manifested at that time. And I feel like the way that it was manifested is through judgment and runs off of the embarrassment of people and runs off of people residing in the feelings of shame, guilt, and fear. I don't even want to go too much into this, but thinking about like even the concept of slavery, having to belittle another person in order to get what you want. And we can see this trickle into socialism in general. Also said no morals or empathy. No morals or empathy is a good way to also describe where and how this society was bred. Like that's the type of energy. And I said that it's taking us down a very destructive path that kind of destroys the concept of community, because all in all, what it translates to like now in modern day is, us not really giving a fuck about each other, us not giving a fuck about this earth, and not giving a fuck about the sustainability of the true wealth that we really need to be focusing on, which is breathable air, livable land. When I talk about livable land, I mean farmable land too. Is farmable a word? Anyways, but land that you can actually grow shit on, because you'd be surprised at the amount of dead land that is on the earth. Drinkable water. So all of those resources, all these natural resources that we're not really focusing on the preservation of, is the real wealth that we are disregarding, in my opinion. And I just think that this selfish path that we have been put on is very destructive, and it's rooted in evilness. True tea. That's just how I feel. That's what I think. Moving me into my when, I asked, when do we experience this in daily life? When do we experience this shame and guilt that this society has projected onto us in everyday life? It's socialism, the way that we act towards one another. So we can see how divided communities, people are from each other, especially in, I want to say, more like city places, you know what I'm saying? Like, you would think that New York is like, we're always like, because we're already on top of each other, quite literally everywhere, you know what I'm saying? It's a city. But, we're so divided. It's normal to walk past, people that are struggling on the train stations and just outside in the cold and shit. Like, it's a normal way to live, being inhumane. When we acknowledge the hatred that we actually reside in as a community, we'll be able to truly shift that perspective towards one another. Because that just moves me into my why, where I said we should be focusing on this because we need more community. Like I said, in order to preserve our natural abundant resources, because Mother Earth is abundant only to those that serve her and make sure she is well, taking care of her. You feel me? Like, we can't expect to live more years and develop all of this technology and shit like that and not take care of her, because it could really be clipped. And I say this, I always say this shit, bro. It could really be clipped for us, because Mother Nature will always come take it back in blood. You think she's afraid to start all over? She's like, oh nah, these humans is wailing right now. Done for. Tsunami, you're out. You're done. You're clipped. Your run is over. Like, yo, you really think Mother Nature, you think that's beneath her? It's really not. She'll do us. We need to get it together. I have faith in us, obviously. That's why I'm here, you know what I'm saying, talking to you. I'm awake. But like, Mother Nature will do us. Like, better get in tone. Facts. And then moving me into my how, which is a question that will be in the description box if you're listening in on YouTube, and it will be in the question box if you're listening in on Spotify, Anchor, or Apple Podcast. Question for this week is, how has shame and guilt held you back in this human experience? That's a great question, Season. Wow, my goodness, what? That's crazy. Like, you really be slapping with them questions. I know. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Alright. So, how has shame and guilt held me back in this lifetime, in this human experience? I would say that the initial thing that I thought of was like pertaining to my career specifically, and like my brand. Now is a time in my career where I'm really like stepping into myself, because 2022 was hella personal, you know what I'm saying? I really took this year to honor myself, honor my work, drop my shit, and really I've just been really consistent with being a creator, because that's what I am, that's what I do. You know what I'm saying? On a whole bunch of different levels. So I would say that now, like, you know, in this fall season and now going into this winter season, like, I have been really stepping into my liberated self as an artist. And I feel like I've always been doing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, just with how I'd be talking on the tracks, you know what I'm saying? Like, I be out of pocket as shit. I won't cap to you guys, you know what I mean? But even in continuing to promote those songs, like, I'm finding new senses of just peace and liberation with that art again, because of just my newfound comfortability in my own sensuality, you know, my own sexuality, my own person, you know, who I am. You know what I mean? I found so much more comfort in that. So it feels beautiful to go back and, you know, give these songs more love and attention. You know what I mean? Just because I'm at a new stage in my life. You know what I mean? And I feel like songs are universal. You know, they're timeless. They're like moments in energy. You know, like pictures are moments like in time, I feel like. And they could be moments in energy too, but I think music especially is moments in energy. Like the energy from these songs are just, you know, I feel like they're monumental and they deserve the love, you know what I mean? And the only reason I'm able to do that is because I released the shame and the guilt behind, you know, just me being myself in my music, you know what I'm saying? Like I can't say all of this in the track and then, you know, not get in front of the camera in the music video and on stage especially to perform, you know, and say this shit, you know, like I said it on the track, like I gotta stand on that shit, like I said what I said, you know what I mean? And I did say what I say, you know what I mean? But because of so many different, you know, societal norms, especially pertaining to the fucking music industry especially, like, oh my goodness, as a black woman, it's this is I know it's a tough industry that I'm going into, but releasing that shame and guilt has put me in a really secure place of just knowing myself, knowing what the fuck I talk about, and being confident in that. You know what I mean? So, like, that's me. On that note, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Money Healing Monologues. I really appreciate you for being here, listening in, and hearing my perspective. Don't forget to let me know your answer to this week's question down below in the description box or in the question box. Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, you know what I'm saying? Tap into all the other episodes if you are new here. They're very enlightening. I hope that my perspective, you know, benefits you in any type of way possible, honestly. I just want to add some sort of substance to whoever comes across my content, you know what I'm saying? I just hope that I leave something with you that is meaningful, you know what I mean? So it is, so be it. Ashe. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one, alright? Peace.